The statement, "Make your wants moderate and your burdens will be less," still rings loudly in the ears of many people looking for a new, simpler way of life. In September of 1995, we lost one of the world's first gurus, Helen Nearing. She, along with her husband Scott, became some of the first activists against the overrun technological lifestyle that seems to be taking over our lives, stealing our need for a long, healthy, simple, happy life with it. It was just before the First World War that Scott Nearing faced the struggles of a society in turmoil. He was fired as a professor at the University of Philadelphia when he spoke out against child labor. He then started speaking out against the war. In 1918, he was charged with acts of sedition for his leadership and distribution of literature that he helped write against our government with another group of men. He was released on all those charges only after being brought before the federal grand jury and the Supreme Court. His teaching and writing careers were over, or so he thought. Scott was already married when he first met Helen, when her father had asked him to give a speech at their church. His first marriage was not going well, and they no longer lived together. Scott's opinions on society equality collided drastically with his first wife's, and at one point he was so fed up with her society that he went out of his way to only eat with a wooden bowl and a wooden spoon. Helen, only 24 at the time that they first met, had felt nervous that such a relationship could blossom. He was 21 years her senior, a communist, and not very happy with her way of life. Scott knew Helen needed to understand his need for simplicity, so asked her to do with all her worldly possessions and work a job, and if she still felt comfortable, of which she did. So, in 1932, they purchased a farm for $2,200 in Vermont at the base of Stratton Mountain, and in 1932 they started their homestead. After his wife died in 1947, Helen and Scott were finally married. While on the farm in Vermont, the Nearings lived a life with no electricity or telephone. They were both vegetarians and subsisted on food that they grew or traded with local farmers. They made money by publishing books and going on lecturing tours. They lived a life of extreme order and simplicity. It was a 12-hour schedule, 4 hours dedicated to farming and maintenance of the farm, 4 hours to writing and to playing her music, and 4 hours to socializing. The buildings and stone walls were in shambles when the Nearings first moved to their homestead, but they turned it into a beautiful home, one stone at a time. They completed a total of 12 buildings and even a small dam. Scott and Helen were very organized in the activities on their farm and kept accurate books so that time and precious money would not be wasted on guesswork and experimenting. When asked about this, Scott stated, "Every row in the garden, every compost pile is numbered." Helen the other day asked me, "When did we get our first blueberries last year?" And I said, "I've got that date down. I've got it in 1970, 1969, 1968, and so on." We were going somewhere. We had to know when the picking time started, and we had the answer right there. We knew we had to pick 40 quarts a day, and we couldn't afford to go away at that time. It's just indispensable. You've got to know the weather, your crops, and so on. Feeling stifled by the ever-encroaching skiing industry, the Nearings decided to move to a homestead at Penobscot Bay, Maine. It was here that they would carry out their work as teachers of a good life. Their land had risen in value to over $6 million due to the skiing industry. Their belief in taking only what they needed led them to donate their property as part of a forest. Their land is still there today, and only a small part of it remains, known as the Forest Farm. Scott had written in his book, The Good Life, that he felt that Vermont hadn't been all that he hoped it would be because of the lack of community. When asked about this, Helen said, "Personally, for ourselves, it was a great success. We accomplished all we wanted, and it was too successful monetarily. We didn't want maple sugaring to become a business. It became very successful personally, but no one else wanted to do it with us in the community." They shared their home with whoever was willing to work hard and learn, and sometimes they would ask a friend or a neighbor for help. Scott was continually active up until his death. He felt that there was no time to be idle, and one day when he asked to play golf, he said, "When I lose my physical capacities, I will take up golf, and when I lose my mental capacities, I will play miniature golf." Scott attributes their health to a young man that he knew he himself when he was young. His friend had been given a death sentence of 90 days, and that young man turned to physical activity, pure food, and a simple lifestyle and lived many years. At Scott's 100th birthday, he announced he wasn't going to eat anymore. 2 weeks later, Scott passed away quietly, and he left the world the way he lived his life, on his own terms and in his own way. Even if people didn't believe in their political views, Helen and Scott Nearing share a gift of wellness and simplicity that can still be admired and duplicated today.